But what I like to talk about instead is the platinum rule. Treat others how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated.
Welcome to the Empower to Grow show, where we fuel your business journey with valuable insights and expert advice. I'm Kelly Brosna, the CEO and State Director of the New Jersey Small Business Development Center Network. And today, I'm thrilled to introduce our special guest, Tiffany Slowinski. She's the CEO of Team Spark Advisors. And Tiffany is an expert in optimizing workplace culture and performance using the Culture Index to help businesses put the right people in the right seats. She's here to share expertise on driving results through leadership and team dynamics. Welcome, Tiffany. We're so excited to have you here today.
Oh, thank you for having me in.
And you just did a presentation for us with the New Jersey Small Business Development Center. Maybe talk a little bit about how to put the right talent in the right seats.
Yeah, so I favor a data-driven approach. You know, any small business owner or even large business owner has interviewed people, been really excited about them, seems like you're off to a good start, and a couple months later, you're kind of looking over on the other side of the desk going, that doesn't seem anything like the person I thought I hired. And it's because we all put our best
I think we've all been there.
Yeah, everybody. I don't come across a business owner who hasn't.
Yeah.
Because everybody puts their best foot forward in an interview process, and there's right answers to questions. Tell me about your biggest weakness. I just work too hard, right? Like answers like that you'll get. And so I favor a data-driven approach in that you really have data on who that person is. So you're not just leaving it up to them to try to describe themselves. You actually know innately who they are and if they are a fit for the role before even interviewing them.
So let's dig a little bit into that, because I love data and I would love to give advice, not to, and believe me, I've been there as well. As organizations, you know, you interview people and they're fabulous, their resumes look great, their recommendations that they put on there are great. How do you ensure, talk about that data, how do you go about, and for our listeners, for them to understand, how do you collect that data? What is the tools that you're using? Because I'm sure you have your own tools and you've put that in place. Maybe let's dig deeper into that on how you holistically look at that candidate to make sure it is the right person through your data.
Yeah. So I use the Culture Index, and that is a tool that measures 7 work-related traits. We've been who we've been since childhood. Nature and nurture, they work together, but by the time you're about the age of 13, honestly, probably much younger, you are who you are. And so when you align somebody into a role that plays to their natural strengths, and they get to be who they are every day at work, they're going to perform better than somebody who's trying to change everything about themselves to fit that role. So for example, when it comes to myself, I'm a low detail person. Even getting here this morning, I'm in the car like, wait, what were the directions again? I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, right? I'm a mover and shaker. And there's things I'm really good at. But if you hired me to be your administrative assistant, you'd probably fire me in a week because I'd be making mistakes at things, right? Whereas you have somebody who's naturally a high detailed, dot the I's, cross the T's person, and they come in, they're going to do that naturally because it would actually pain them not to be that way. They like to double check things. They want to make sure the directions are correct. They know how much time it's going to take them to get there. And that's really formed in childhood and then becomes innate in us for the rest of our lives. So when we're in a role that aligns with that, it happens very naturally. You'll see a lot of times in companies, they'll promote somebody. So think small businesses, you might only have a handful of employees and suddenly you take your best employee and you make them a manager and it's not going well. Well, the skills that made somebody really good in a role are a different set of skills that make somebody really good at management. And now you might have just plucked your best employee And now you've got a lousy manager too. And now as a small business owner, you're stuck kind of having to step in and manage that entire situation.
So when you help the businesses, they have this tool. So is it like a survey, a question and answer type of thing? So they go through that process, then the leadership gets the results of it, and then what? Then what?
So then what is, I'm there to walk you through it, because you'll get a whole bunch of data back on people and it's like, well, this is interesting, but I don't really know what to do with it. So you take it and you kind of shove it in your desk drawer and forget about it. I'm there to really help you understand who's on your team. How can you better communicate with them? How can you better manage them? How can you better work together? It's really hard to get outside of your own personal view. And so, for example, I like to talk about when we're children, we learn the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. And it's a really good concept. It's, being kind to others. But what I like to talk about instead is the platinum rule. Treat others how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated, because we have a tendency to come from our own view. And so if you're a hands-off leader because you don't like being micromanaged and you like freedom and you like room for creativity, you will have a tendency towards managing that way, where you could be very hands-off. That could be fantastic for certain employees and be really detrimental to other employees who are like, I need guidance. I don't know what to do here. She only checks in with me once or twice a week and I'm kind of flying solo. Well, if you don't know that about that person and you're just coming from your own viewpoint, you could really be missing an opportunity to really help grow somebody and have them be a fantastic member of your team.
So it's more like and again, one size doesn't fit all. Nope. So you have to take each person as an individual and to sort of develop a plan specific for them. I mean, we always say, and I always tell people, don't hire you. You don't need you, right? You need somebody who's not you because you're good at this, but you need all this other stuff around you. Is that the same sort of concept?
So think about exactly what you just said. I don't need to hire myself to work with me. I need somebody who's going to see my blind spots, who's going to be able to do the things that I can't do or I'm not that good at. But we then go and try to manage them the way we would manage ourselves. They're a different person for a reason. So it's understanding who they are, and within a team dynamic, how are these two going to work together? How are these ones over here? I like to say we work with who we have, but then also we hire better. So now we have an understanding, a baseline of who's already here, who's going to fit well into that dynamic, who's going to be able to do those roles as a growing company that you're going to need, particularly in small business. These might be positions you never had before. You've never hired somebody for them before. So the other thing I do is really walk you through what exactly are you looking for? Because you might not know. You might just think another you, somebody just do more work. Right. But what exactly does that role look like? Because you might wear more than one hat, but there's a piece that you're going to spend the most time with. I have a business I'm working with, and he was recently hiring the owner for he called it business development / administrative assistant. And I said, wait, business development, so sales and an administrative assistant. Tell me more about what does that look like? So long story short, it really comes out that he really needs an administrative assistant, but that he goes to trade shows. And so he needs somebody to go to the trade shows. I said, well, how often do you go to trade shows? 2 or 3 times a year. I said, okay, so 2 or 3 times a year, somebody has to be able to help set up a booth, stand there, collect information, maybe hand out some pamphlets and do some follow-up. Yeah. Okay, you need to hire an administrative assistant who can modify themselves a couple times a year, or even grab somebody else from the business if they're really not good at that. But if you hire somebody and they think they're coming in for a business development role, they're not going to be happy as your administrative assistant. And the person who's going to be really good in that business development sales role is the person who's going to drive you nuts as an administrative assistant. So really understand what is the biggest need that you're hiring for.
So do you, in just talking about the leadership of a business, I mean, it doesn't really matter what size. When somebody is looking they need help, right? And data is very important. And so, but if they don't have that position and they're creating from scratch, do you help them with their the sort of the job description, or because what it sounded like, that example is a perfect example, is that role should really be split in two, right? A side of the brain, B side, side of the left to right side of the brain, right? Organized versus like dynamic sales and stuff. That could be two different types of personality, right? So do you help them sort of does a business bring you in early on and help them sort of fine tune their needs in order to make sure that they're hiring right? Because part of your concept is putting the right people in the right seats, right?
Yeah. So in that example, you're right. Those are two different humans. But in a small business, there's points in time where maybe they don't have the budget to hire two people. So that one person has to be able to somewhat fulfill both roles. But really, that is, in that example, business development is a very, very small piece of what that person really needed to be able to do. But yes, figuring out who do we need now, and then also thinking about future growth, where are we going? So for now, maybe this position looks like this, but really what I'm hiring for is for the future where it's going to look more like this. So coming in early is a benefit because you're setting up and aligning yourself early in. The less turnover you have, you're able to start growing your people. If you bring in a lousy salesperson and you're a small business, that could be a disproportionately large piece of your business that's not coming in. That could make or break you in the early stages, not having that right salesperson. And in sales in particular, and I love talking about sales because that's my background. I'm a former VP of sales, so I really love sales teams. But with sales, we have a tendency towards hiring the most social person in the room. We think everybody loves her. She's going to be a rock star at this. And if there's certain other traits that are also there, yes. But there's also people who are just super friendly, but don't like to ask you to sign a contract and don't like to collect money and don't like when clients are upset or things like that. And they're really friendly people in life of the party, but not necessarily a sales profile. And so when you have those people in your organization that aren't able to go out and achieve those numbers and hit those goals, a lot of times a business owner, what they'll do is they'll sort of step in. And a lot of times it's the small business owner that really wears the sales hat for a very long period of time because they have trouble getting other people who can do those sales for them.
So I would think, and just going into, let's talk about a business that has employees. So we've been talking a little bit about hiring, right? And I think that that's really beneficial because the pool of individuals for hiring can be sort of limited. So let's talk about businesses that have employees, that maybe some employees that have been around for a very, very long time, and a business needs to grow. As all businesses, they need to grow or diversify, go into different directions, thinking about those low-hanging fruits of what is the right direction they need to go to. The data so would a business come in, hire you, bring you in, survey those existing businesses, or existing employees, and then they get that result. You work with them on their future, their vision of where they want to be. So how do you coach them if they find out that the employees, they don't want to go in those different directions, or they don't want to step up and do more? They're very happy with where they're at. How does that data help the business? What do they do next,
So the business owners always already know there's a problem.
Sure.
They're
just validating it with the data, right?
And what's helpful with that, it gives you tangible information to back up what you already are experiencing, but you don't know why.
Okay.
And so sometimes we're trying to put a round peg in a square hole, or am I saying that the wrong way? But
No, that's right.
you're trying to make somebody fit into something that they're not. And so there's frustration on both sides. I also see people, I'll look at their profiles and see they're like raring and ready to go and being kind of held down by the owner who's not letting them act out on their full potential. So some people, they are the right person. They just haven't been given the freedom to run with the role. And then there's people who, they're not looking for career advancement. They're actually very happy doing what they want to do. And so this push towards, well, they've been here the longest, so this is who I should promote. And then you're promoting them to a position they're unhappy in, that they don't want to be in. They might think they want it. They like the idea of making more money and a title. But people who don't like managing others, they're very honest with me, and I'll say, it doesn't look like you really you would enjoy managing others. And they go, oh, I hate it.
So I want to talk a little bit about the demographics of the employee base. How does that differ with sort of age? You have millennials, you have and I think baby boomers are pretty much migrating out of the workplace now, retirements and things like that. How does the data help them on manage the different sort of, I guess it's not personalities, but the demographics of the age group of the employees that they're working with?
Yeah, so Gen Z gets kind of this bad rap right now, but you've got to remember a lot of them came into the workforce during COVID and were literally working from home for the first job they ever had. Yeah. They never came into an office and got to learn by watching, experiencing, being part, or actively, part of a team. So there is a little bit of that gap there. And they also value different things. They do value doing good in the world. They like to be part of companies that have purpose. But the more interesting thing that not everybody realizes is when surveyed, Gen Z is actually more similar to the baby boomers than the millennials, and that they favor job security. They've entered the world during a very insecure time. A lot of them are still living with their parents. They can't get a mortgage for their first house yet, things like that. And so they're more likely to be loyal employees than the millennials who were known for the job hopping every.
Right, 2 to 3 years I heard it's like, and if you're at a company for more than 5, then you're a loser.
Yeah. And that's how they view it. Like, I got to hop around to
right.
I'll do a little bit of a lift here and maybe lateral there. And so it is a little bit of a different dynamic going on now. That said, with this whole virtual working, and there's more and more companies that are really bringing people back in or kind of going with that hybrid approach, for certain profiles, that needs to be managed differently. Depending on your traits, are you able to really sit by yourself 8 hours a day and effectively manage your time? Some people, yes. It is absolutely the most productive way for them to work. For others, they do need to have people checking in, to have accountability and things like that inserted in, because they will have a more natural tendency towards relaxing or doing other things, or they get distracted.
Yeah, it is interesting because even we in a public-private partnership, have shifted to a hybrid work environment. And you're right, sometimes people love that. I personally crave people. I like being around people, so that part can be a little challenging. So do you help the businesses, does the data help them to, what is the perfect fit for a company with their employee base? And you're right, I mean, a lot of businesses, we've been a couple years now out of it, but they're still finding their way of what is the right secret sauce for, is it 3 days in the office? Is it 2 days in the office? What is that good hybrid, environment? Does the data help them with that as well?
Yeah, so it's not really a one-size-fits-all
Sure.
approach. Well, you get to work home 5 days a week and you have to come in every day because
it's a policy, right? You have to think about policies.
Yeah. It's really, okay, so the more social people like you might really crave the company events and happy hours and things like that, where you get a chance to come in and see others, and helps you to feel connected. Some companies, it's just as simple as they have a chat group and they'll laugh like, oh, certain people are in there all day, every day, kind of checking in with the coworkers. Yeah. Others, they never have anything they want to say there. But it's there as like an option to kind of fill that need. Social people will create more meetings that they don't necessarily need, just have reasons to talk. Things become hour-long Zoom calls that used to just be, I'm passing by you in the hallway.
Sure.
And can answer your question, because they're craving that connection.
Interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about your journey. you said you were in sales. How did you go from sales to now, and I guess in a way it is still sales because you've got a product that you want companies to be able to use, but talk to us about your journey, because there's a lot of people out there that have been employees that would like to figure out, how can I own my own business and how can I make that pathway successful? Maybe give our audience and our viewers a little bit of your journey and how you made it happen and how successful it's been for you.
Yeah, so I really embrace the sales background, which is funny because in what I do, it's almost a dirty word. I'm a consultant, I'm not a salesman. But every business owner, you are selling something.
Sure.
If you're in business, you're in sales. And I don't shy away from that because that's how you acquire clients and that's how every business makes money. My background is not straightforward. I actually went to Columbia. I have my master's degree in psychology, and I was a guidance counselor for 13 years first, which people are often surprised at. And from that, I started kind of working on this website on the side and selling local advertising just in my town. Was just kind of looking for a little side hustle, looked interesting,
Sure.
Became really good at that, and wound up retiring at 35 from my guidance counselor role and pursuing that full time. Well, my husband came across this magazine franchise and he said to me, I think you'd be really good at that. And so I embarked into business with my husband. So I am a small business owner myself. I relate to people who wear those hats, right? And so 5 years ago, me and my husband started a publication, Bridgewater City Lifestyle. We've since expanded. We own 3 of them now. And I was selling local advertising. And through my involvement with City Lifestyle, I started using the Culture Index. So I'm a client of the Culture Index first. And our CEO of City Lifestyle had brought that in. And I saw immediately it clicked for me in understanding why was I so good in sales and why did other people struggle and why did this admin not work out for me, but this one's amazing, and who makes a good editor for us in building out our team. And I think combined with my psych background, I was like, this is a no-brainer. I want to do this for other businesses. And so I'm a licensee of the Culture Index now, and I work with other businesses doing what that did for us.
Well, I think it's fabulous for our listeners and our audience to understand that it is helpful to start it off as a passion or a side hustle and then grow and build into that. We recommend that a lot. Not to say that, jumping in, both feet all in, but do your research, do your data, figure out the why, figure out your audience. And we tell people all the time, do a feasibility analysis of, is this going to work? Is it going to work for you? And I think your data and your company helps them figure that out, right? But on the other side of, do people want it, need it? And we're into potentially a really great time. We have the holidays coming up. There's some opportunity for growth, and bringing on people, whether they're permanent or temporary people. And I think a product like yours could be extremely useful and helpful of making sure, you got a very short window to make sure you're bringing that person in. And so is there any final sort of for our audience sort of words of wisdom or nuggets that you would recommend businesses to consider as they're going into potential, maybe, whether it's part-time, temporary time, growth time, what should they consider? Some advice from you on what they should consider.
Just because somebody might be part-time, temporary, you still want the right person in there. We have this tendency towards, we just need a warm body. I don't have time for hiring. I just want to get this done. And then when you have people who don't show up when they're supposed to show up, and you've got a mess at your store and things like that, you didn't put the right pull the right people in. And it can take a little extra time up front, but if you do hiring the right way up front, you then go into a season and you can know that you've got a good team in place and you're not as worried about what's going to happen when this one quits and that one gets fired. And be refilling those same positions over and over.
Sure. Sort of like, well, hire smart, right? Hire right, hire smart, right?
Yep.
So for our audience and listeners, how do they find out about you, your company, and your product? And what is the best way for them to be able to connect with you?
Yeah, so you could visit my website, teamsparkadvisors.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Tiffany Slowinski.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you, Tiffany, for today. It's been great having this conversation, and I'm sure our audience and our listeners get a lot of really good advice and resources that they can consider. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Empower to Grow show. Stay tuned for our next episode where we continue to provide valuable insights to help your businesses grow. And remember, we're here to support you every step of the way. Have a great day.